The comfortable rhythm of my life was set to the gentle hum of a reliable routine. For 12 years, it had been me and Mark. Mark with his steady job as an accountant, his predictable love for grilled cheese on Tuesdays, and his way of kissing my forehead each morning like I was a precious but familiar object on a shelf. We weren't unhappy, or so I told myself. We were comfortable. Our love felt like a favorite, well-worn sweater, warm, reliable, but with all the softness washed out of it, the shapes stretched and known. I thought that was just what happened after more than a decade. I thought the slow fade of passion was a natural, if bittersweet, part of growing older together. Then I met Leo. He wasn't a colleague or a friend of a friend. He was the new owner of the artisanal framing shop downtown, a place I'd wandered into one idle Thursday afternoon, looking to frame a print my sister had given me. Where Mark was solid and grounded, Leo was all kinetic energy and sharp angles. He had eyes the color of stormy seawater and hands that were calloused, but moved with a surprising grace as he handled a piece of matte board. That first day, he didn't just ask what frame I wanted. He asked me about the print, why I liked it, what it meant to me. He talked about light and shadow, about the emotion a good frame could either contain or set free. I stood there, a 35-year-old woman named Sarah, who spent her days managing social media accounts for a local real estate agency, and I felt seen, not as Mark's wife, not as a content creator, but as a person with tastes and thoughts that mattered. It was a small thing, but it was a crack in the foundation of my predictable world. I found reasons to go back. A different print, a question about preservation, anything. Our conversation started stretching longer. We'd talk about movies beyond just the plot, about books that made us feel unsettled, about the quiet frustrations and secret dreams of our lives. With Leo, I wasn't the slightly frazzled, comfortable wife I saw reflected in Mark's eyes. I was witty. I was interesting. I was mysterious. The emotional affair started long before anything physical ever did. It began in the DMs, as these things often do. A funny meme that reminded him of our conversation. A song link with the message, "This made me think of that story you told me." Each notification was a little jolt of electricity in my gray day. I'd find myself smiling at my phone, and when Mark would ask what was so funny, I'd just say, "Oh, nothing. Just something from work." The guilt was a low, constant hum, easily drowned out by the symphony of new attention. Mark was a good man. He paid the mortgage, he remembered our anniversary, he asked about my day. But he hadn't looked at me the way Leo did in years. Leo's gaze was a physical thing, like a touch. It made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. The first time we met outside the shop, it was officially as friends. A coffee. It felt daring, a secret mission in the middle of a Tuesday. He reached across the table to steal a sip of my latte, his finger brushing against mine, and a spark, hot and sharp, shot straight up my arm. It was so different from the polite, habitual pecks I shared with Mark. This was a current. This was danger. This was feeling, "You're so much more than this town, than your job," Leo said to me that day, his voice low and intense. "I see this fire in you, Sarah. It's like you've been asleep, and I want to be there when you wake up." That was his refrain, his seduction. He wanted me to feel something new. And God, I did thought the first time we kissed, it wasn't in a romantic, soft-focused movie scene. It was in the back storage room of his shop, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and glue. It was frantic and hungry and full of teeth. My heart wasn't fluttering. It was a frantic drum against my ribs. The guilt was there, a screaming voice in the back of my head, but it was muffled by the roaring in my ears, by the sheer, overwhelming physicality of it. This wasn't the comfortable, known intimacy of my marriage. This was a collision. The affair escalated from there. Stolen hours in cheap motels on the edge of town, where the sheets smelled of bleach and our time was measured in frantic minutes. Every touch was amplified, every whisper felt like a confession. I was living a double life, and the deception fueled the intensity. Lying to Mark became a horrible, necessary skill. I became an actress in my own home, performing the role of Sarah, the faithful wife, while my mind was always elsewhere, replaying Leo's words, his hands, his promises. He promised me a different life, a life of passion and art, of staying up late talking about philosophy and making love on the floor. He made my stable suburban life with Mark seem like a slow, comfortable death. He made me believe that choosing comfort over this all-consuming fire would be the greatest betrayal of myself. The climax, the moment the entire house of cards came crashing down, wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was quiet, and it was utterly devastating. I'd come home from an afternoon with Leo, my skin still humming, my lips slightly swollen. I'd been careful, or so I thought. But I walked into our bedroom, and Mark was sitting on the edge of the bed, my forgotten iPad in his hands. It was still logged into my messages. The entire sordid, emotional and physical timeline of my affair was laid bare in green and white bubbles on the screen. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. The look on his face was worse than any anger. It was a complete and total shattering. The man I had built a life with for 12 years seemed to dissolve right in front of me, leaving behind a hollowed-out shell. "Sarah?" he whispered, his voice ragged. "Who are you?" I had no answer. The witty, interesting woman from the framing shop was gone. The passionate lover from the motel room was gone. I was just a woman standing in her bedroom, watching the life she knew evaporate because she'd wanted to feel something new. The fallout was a special kind of hell. The raw, guttural pain in Mark's eyes every time he looked at me. The disgust from my sister when I told her. The pity from friends. Leo, when I finally went to him, panicked and lost, was different too. The thrill of the secret was gone. The reality of what we'd done was a cold, hard thing between us. The passionate artist was suddenly just a man who had helped break a home. The fire he'd promised now felt like the heat from a burning building. Mark moved out. We started the slow, bureaucratic death of divorce. The new feelings I was experiencing were not the ones Leo had promised. This was a profound, soul-crushing grief. This was a guilt so heavy it felt like a physical weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. This was the terrifying emptiness of a future I no longer recognized. I had to move into a small, impersonal apartment. The silence there was deafening. No Mark puttering in the kitchen. No comfortable rhythm. Just the echo of my own terrible choices. I'd gotten my wish. I was feeling something new, all right. I was feeling the complete and total demolition of my own life. I saw Leo a few more times, but the magic was gone. Without the secrecy, without the stolen moments, what was left was a relationship built on a foundation of betrayal. We were two people bound by the worst thing they'd ever done. He couldn't handle the reality of my grief, the constant shadow of the pain I'd caused. He wanted the fiery, exciting woman, not the broken, remorseful one crying in a cheap apartment. He left a few months later, saying he needed to find a new scene. He wanted me to feel something new, and then he couldn't handle what he'd created. It's been 2 years now. The divorce is final. I still live in that small apartment, but I've made it my own. I go to therapy every week. I'm learning to sit with the silence, to forgive myself even if Mark never can. He was right, Leo, I was asleep. But the wake-up call wasn't the passion or the excitement. The real awakening was the cataclysmic consequence. It was realizing that feeling something new isn't always a good thing. It was learning the hard way that the comfort and safety of a loyal, steady love is not a prison, it's a sanctuary. It's the bedrock, the quiet, profound love that shows up every single day, not just in grand, dramatic gestures. I destroyed my sanctuary because I mistook its peace for boredom. I confused stability for stagnation. I wanted a wildfire, and I didn't stop to think that fires don't just burn bright. They consume everything in their path, leaving only ashes behind. Leo wanted me to feel something new, and I did. I feel a regret so deep it has reshaped my soul. I feel the ghost of a good man love every single day, and I feel a hard-won understanding that sometimes the most profound feeling in the world isn't a lightning bolt of passion. It's the quiet, steady warmth of a sunrise you were too asleep to notice you already had.